All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our leadership call for this Monday. I hope you're excited. Some of you are just wrapping up your day. Some of you are just getting started. Some of you, it's already Wednesday, I think, based on where you are in the world. So it's good to be with you again. It is time to talk about John Maxwell's laws. Once again, we're going through the 21 laws of leadership. If you're in Bulgaria, we're on law number 14. And John Maxwell is in case you don't know that, I'm just backing up a little bit for everybody, is the #1 leadership author in the world right now. He's written over 100 books on leadership, so that makes him qualified, evidently. So let's talk about law number 14, which is the law of buy-in. Buy-in. B-U-Y-N, the law of buy-in. So what we're doing with these little leadership calls currently in the 21 laws of leadership is I'm kind of comparing leadership like a diamond. Some of you have a diamond. My wife, a few years back, replaced her original wedding diamond on the ring with a larger diamond, which was a lot cooler. And diamonds, if you look at them, are known by cut, color, and clarity, and they have many facets. So what we're doing with leadership is we're looking at all the facets of leadership, taking that topic and just looking at it from different angles. So today, Maxwell and I'm kind of standing in for John Maxwell. He couldn't make it today. We're talking about the law of buy-in. So here are a couple thoughts from him, and I will stray from his book occasionally. He says in this particular chapter that people buy into the leader, then the vision. Whenever I say something slowly or I repeat it, then everybody should go, oh, and write that down. So Q, they buy into the leader and then the vision. And we're going to talk about this from a sales aspect too, because most of you are in sales and you're becoming leaders, or you already are leaders. And the fact is, if you're in sales, your client has to buy into you and then your product and service, right? So let me give you an example of the law of buy-in. When I worked at Southwestern, when I was much younger, in my 20s, I was invited to move to the corporate office, and they wanted me to be the marketing manager. And one of my responsibilities was to run the training or to contribute to that. And my very first assignment that I received at our training school was I got on stage and they said, okay, here's what we want you to cover. You get to cover an important topic, how to read your motivational books. And I was like, what? That's not a topic. I mean, give me something important, like how to read motivational books. You open them and you start. That didn't make any sense. So I had a very tiny little responsibility when I first started because the leadership, the executive team hadn't bought into me fully yet. Not everybody knew who I was. So at first, in that capacity as marketing manager, I made some suggestions. I put them to our directors for approval. And later, as they got to know me better and the quality of the projects that I worked on, I had more and more unsupervised activities. I could make suggestions and not even run it past them. I was kind of a free agent and creating new improvements. So sometimes every year, I'd get together with the marketing team and say, what are we going to do this year to be cool and different and fun and to increase production? So everything was rubber stamped. They bought into me at some point. So back to Maxwell, the success of the group and how successfully the vision that you cast at LGFG or the message gets spread is determined by the strength of the leader. How many of you raise your hand if you think Dimitri is a fairly strong leader? Look at that. Some people, Dimitri's quickly looking around. Good. We had 100% participation on that. That's good. Good answer. So people, when they're joining an organization, they don't go out looking for a message. They go out looking for a leader. And that reminded me a couple of years ago when we were vacationing in Eastern Europe. We came across a statue of Mindaugas, the wise, and all the Lithuanians are going, yes, Mindaugas. He was the first king of Lithuania. He was very famous, and he was a strong clan leader. What he did was, if you know your history of Lithuania, he united all the Lithuanian speaking Baltic tribes and he forged them into kind of a single federated nation. So he had the vision, but the people didn't believe in the vision because they were all in separate clans and tribes. They believed in him first and then the vision. So there you go. So that means if you're looking to spread the LGFG vision and to grow the company, everybody has to remember that people buy into you first as leaders and then the vision of what LGFG is about. So if you're confused by all that Lithuanian history, just know this: you need to sell yourself before you sell your vision or your service. Okay? So that's a good one to remember. You got to sell yourself first. If some of you were in Leeds a year or so ago, we ran a little DVD for the younger team by Nicholas Boothman called How to Connect with People in 90 Seconds. How many people remember that? 1, 2, 3. All right, 2. That was an impactful time, evidently. But anyway, Nicholas Boothman said this, and this comes to another little facet of the law of buy-in. He said, when people like you, they see the best in you, and they look for ways to say yes, right? So if you're in sales, if they like you, if they trust you, they'll look for ways to say yes, to buy things from you. And you know this from being around other people. If they don't like you, they automatically see the worst in you, right? Think about people you don't like. You know, if let's think about people you do like. If they like you, let's say you have a type A personality, you're a real driver. If people like you, they say, oh, he's direct, he's decisive. If they don't like you, they say, oh, he's pushy, he's overbearing, he pressures people, right? So that likability factor is key, and we'll talk about that more in 1 second. So one key to having people buy into the LGFG vision is to be likable. So every article I read talks about that, if you're in sales, being a starting point for influence, a starting point. So it doesn't matter what you're creating or what kind of message you're trying to spread. People need to buy into you before they buy into your service. So here's another point. You can think about this or write this down if you feel like taking notes. People don't at first follow worthy causes. That's what Maxwell talks about. People don't at first just follow causes. They follow worthy leaders who promote worthwhile causes. Let's think of an example besides Mindaugas. Let's think of Gandhi. If you know the story of Gandhi, I won't go through his whole biography, but he started off as a barrister in South Africa working for social justice, and he grew very famous in that capacity. And when he was in India, the people followed him because of him. His notion of nonviolence didn't take, to make change, to free India from the British Empire. That didn't take immediately, but because they believed in him, they bought into him, then they bought into his vision. So if a leader hasn't built credibility, it doesn't matter how great a vision there is. And so, in looking at Dimitri and all the senior leaders and partners at LGFG, they have to keep adding credits to people's emotional bank accounts because they need to be trusted to be followed, right? Right. So here's another thought, if you want to write something down. Every message that people receive is filtered through the messenger who delivers it. Every message people receive, it's filtered through the messenger who delivers it. That's true. So once people have bought into somebody, then they're willing to give the vision a chance. Exact same thing with sales. People want to go along with you if they get along with you. So when I was recruiting teams, when I was in direct sales myself, the question I always asked myself before I encountered a client was, how can I get this person to like me quickly? How can I establish trust quickly? How can I get them to buy into me quickly? So it was relationship first, company second, because usually they didn't even know what the company meant or what they were about. So this is all intertwined. Maxwell says when followers don't like the leader or the vision, what do? They look for another leader, right? I think about professional sports teams. If you're following a soccer team, if a soccer team or football team isn't doing well, then what do? They change the leader. They don't fire all the players. They change the leader, right? And then Maxwell says when followers they like the leader, but not the direction, the vision of where things are going, they just change the vision. So I think we've got a good vision at LGFG. We're heading in the right direction. That's all good. I think Dimitri's in a good place. Everybody that I've ever talked to said they respect him. And, so we're in alignment as far as that goes on the law of buy-in. So here's something that I'm going to give you 4 points because some of you are just staring going, I don't know what to write down. So let me give you 4 points because this always helps to have points. All right. And this is the topic. How do I increase my buy-in factor with people? How do you increase your buy-in factor? That's the topic. So number 1, consider the other person's perspective. Okay. Consider the other person's perspective. Leaders who want to influence others have to spend time thinking about how the information will be received by the other person before they start to try to influence. Think about bad salespeople who've called on you. If you ever had someone call you on the phone, no rapport, bad tone, they immediately jump into influence. In other words, here's my sales pitch, bam, and they hit you over the head with it. So consider the other person's perspective. What's important to them? And what all clients want to know is, what's in this for me? What's in this for me? I don't want to just be polite and listen to someone talk to me. There has to be a need that you fill. So consider their perspective before yours. Number 2, develop your personal influence power. Your personal influence power. And we'll come back to likability. Dr. Robert Cialdini is one of the world's most famous experts in influence strategies. And it's very simple what he says. I'll save you time reading his books and articles. It says this: when we like a person, we're more likely to allow them to influence us. Let me say that again. When we like a person, we are more likely to allow them to influence us. So we become open-minded to someone that we like and that we trust. So when you're in sales, you have to think, what have I done to build the relationship and develop some mutual liking of each other before I attempt to influence? Okay, you've got to make that connection. So that's number 2. Number 3, this one is a little bit more for advertisers and marketers, but this is true. Oftentimes you can use authority to support your idea. Use authority to support your idea. Now, what that translates into names, using key names. How many of you have mentioned a particular name on the phone when you're doing referrals and suddenly the person becomes open-minded to influence? If you had that happen, you're like, oh, do you know so-and-so? They're like, yeah, I know them. And suddenly they become your friend. So use authority. When an authority figure has endorsed an idea, people are more likely to say yes. Think about adverts and commercials that have athletes promoting something, like if you have Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, the famous old NBA player, promoting athlete's foot powder. I mean, okay, that kind of makes sense, but sometimes you've got athletes and celebrities from, say, Hollywood who are promoting something. There's no real connection, but because it's someone that you know and you like, your brain kind of opens up a little bit to being influenced. That's why they use those. Sometimes, and it's weird, sometimes you got people from Hollywood making commentary on politics or whatever. They don't know anything about it, but hey, if they said it's true, it must be true. I'll be open to that. All right, let's talk about number 4, which is important to you in selling. Ask for the person's opinion. Another way to get buy-in is to ask for their opinion. Engage the person to give you some feedback and input, right? That builds ownership and reduces pushback. And you never know, the idea might be better if you get some input too. So what I tried to do back in the day, remember I started off and said, here's what it was like when I was working and I was younger and I had no influence. I always went to my directors first and sort of tried to influence them. I said, here's an idea that I think we should adopt. And once they all bought in, then when we had a meeting, the meeting went well. And I always ask my director, I said, Roy, whenever I get to the end and I say, let's vote on this, I want you to be the guy who stands up and says, this is a great idea. Here's why. He'd say, okay. So if I didn't do that on the front end, if I didn't get their opinions on the front end, then I got tremendous pushback from directors because they suffered from a syndrome in many corporations called DLINMI. DLINMI, which stands for don't like it, not my idea. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that in. So here's the deal as we come to a conclusion. If you're trying to build LGFG, if we're trying to recruit good people, remember, important, you don't attract who you want, you attract who you are. Got it? You don't attract who you want, you attract who you are. It's kind of a variation on the law of magnetism. Who you are is who you will attract into the business. Everybody agree with that? Nod your head. All right, pretty good. Also, the law of influence is in play, right? I'm getting all these laws thrown in here. Your leadership simply means influence. And the greater your lid level, the law of the lid, the higher your leadership quotient, the greater your ability to influence and recruit top talent. You always first need to work on yourself before you spread what LGFG is about to others. Because people don't at first follow great companies, they follow great leaders who promote worthwhile companies and opportunities, right? They always ask, think about it, when you wanted to join this company, in the back of your mind, you might have thought, is this a place where I can work with? Or is this a place I can contribute? Are these people I can work with? Is it a cool place to work with? Are the people cool? Is this a place I can grow? That's what you ask first, right? So people want to go along with who they can get along with. And I referenced Tisa. Where's Tisa? There she is. Yeah, there she is. We have talked a couple times about when we were kind of on the outside of LGFG looking in, and she got a real good impression of the company and said, you know what, this might be a place I'd want to work someday because everybody around here they're growing, they're cool, they're fun, you know, and it looks like this company is a place that's actually happening. So those are things that are important to folks as they buy into what you're doing. Okay, so from a selling standpoint, real important that your clients buy into you, and if they don't, most of these folks you call on are pretty confident. They're confident enough to say no. How many of you have heard no? Yes, 4 or 5 of you. So we want to make sure that we're at our best. We want to make sure that we are making sure that we connect with them well and they buy into us before we start pitching things. Right. So I want you to think about a few questions. I will post these with the recording of this, and I will trust you to kind of talk over a few questions with your office teams. Let me just throw a couple out. One thought is this: do people buy into me and what I stand for? That's a great question. So one of you that's acting as secretary of your group, write that down. Do people buy into me and what I stand for? That'd be a good discussion topic. Here's another one. Do people respect me and my reputation? Yes. Do people respect me? What's my reputation like? Have they bought into me? Here's another question. How do I become more effective in the area of buy-in? How do I become more effective? And here's a real twisted one that I think I like this kind of question because you really have to think. And some of you veterans might dig into this. How do I know when my clients buy into me? How do I know when they buy into me? And the easy answer is, well, they buy stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, that's true, but what are some subtle things you can look for or evidence that they're buying into what you are, what you stand for, your reputation, and your company? Okay, so those are questions to think about. The law of buy-in, very exciting. We want to make sure that we do that. You know what? In this week, I kind of feel bad because I don't have a big quote to finish off. So make up one. You guys think of some outstanding quotes and share them with each other. Okay, let me just see. Is anybody out there, as I went through this, you had a thought, a comment, or you had a good answer for one of those questions at the end?
Hey Lee, it's Demi here. I actually have something today I thought was pretty cool.
Good.
Just because this is the first time, I just want to make a note here. It's the first time anyone's ever chimed in on your call.
Not true, but go ahead.
In the last 12 months. I was watching a really interesting video interview with a guy named Jimmy Iovine.
Yep.
Like Jimmy Iovine is like a super famous record producer, and he's produced like all sorts. Like he's like the most famous, the #1 guy.
That is true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the guy that was interviewing him asked him, he's like, what would you suggest to, maybe I'll turn the camera so you guys can see me too. Hello. And they asked him, like, what would you suggest to young people that are like starting out in the business, and what would you tell them is like, you know, the thing they need to keep in mind, right? And Jimmy Iovine said, and this is a quote I wrote down, I thought was great. He goes, you have to, first of all, he goes, you work way harder than everybody else. He said, and then you do that and you do that and you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. Then you think you're going to succeed, and finally, then you fail again, and then you fail, and you work really, really hard and you fail. And you do that all the time. Just fail, work hard and fail and fail and fail and fail, and just outwork everyone all the time, and then fail somewhere and fail somewhere. He goes, and if you do that, and if you do way more of that than everyone else for the eternity of time, then and only then you will finish number 2 or 3.
Nice. That's good advice. It's true, especially in selling. Absolutely. All right. Anybody else? Good comments. Anybody else an important record producer from around the world? Okay. All right. Well, listen, I'm not going to take up any more of your time because this is valuable time. So have a great week. Go make calls or recover from today, either one. Keep up the great work. I'll look forward to visiting with you all next week. We're going to enjoy Thanksgiving here in the States. So our holidays begin shortly, but we need to sell some more suits. So go for it. Signing off.